black swan. Black swan. As rare as hen's teeth, right? What do you associate with a black swan?
The story, but the swan, black swan was the outside.
We talk about black swan events, don't we? Right? What's a black swan event? You've never heard of a black swan event?
No.
Okay. I was really expecting all this feedback. Okay. A black swan event is something completely unexpected. Okay? It's gonna have a major effect on your life, and it's gonna have dire consequences. Maybe I read too many economic. This is usually used when they talk about a market crash. So 2008 was a black swan event. Okay? 9/11. Black swan events are usually marked by a pre and a post. So we talk pre 9/11, our life was one way. Post 9/11, our life was another. Nick brought up Noah. And Christ says they were giving in marriage, they were feasting, life was just proceeding along, and then it started raining. It was a black swan event. Now, others would say, wait a minute. We knew that there were terrorist groups seeking to take down the World Trade Center. Wasn't the first time that a bomb had been detonated around that part of New York City. So there's always been some prophet, and I don't mean that as a divinely inspired, but there's always been someone who said, hey, wait, we heard a lot of chatter before 9/11. Well, the same's true in the days of Noah. How long did it take him to build that boat?
100 years.
120 years. What does Peter say? Noah was a preacher of righteousness. So anyone who was within the sound of Noah's voice or could see what Noah was doing was warned about that day. No excuse for it to have been a black swan event. But I want to look at a couple of those. And Nick? The first one I want to look at with you this morning is Genesis chapter 6. And this is right before the deluge. So the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth. That's important. Every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Every thought. Every space. Moments to me take up space. Every thought. Evil continually. We think that today it's as bad as it has ever been. That's not true. There are millions of people who do not dwell on evil continually. That's not how it was in the days of Noah. The Lord was sorry. The Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. It's amazing that we are so in the image of God, isn't it? That he feels what you feel. You've been sorry You've been grieved in your heart? So the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, creeping things and birds of the air, for I am sorry that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Thank God for Noah. So this is the genealogy of Noah. Noah was a just man, perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with God. Noah had a relationship, didn't he, with God? Noah was aiming up. He wanted justice. Tell me a little about Noah's genealogy. Do you remember who his granddad was? Oldest man who ever lived. Methuselah was Noah's granddad. That's right. That's right. And who was Methuselah's great granddad? It was Seth. And we know who Seth's dad was, right? So now you have a little bit of the idea. Lamech was Noah's father. And when Lamech had Noah, he said, what Noah means is, the name means to rest or to have repose. Lamech said, maybe this child of ours will give us rest from this cursed ground that we've been working. Why was the ground cursed? Because of what happened in the garden, right? Man has forever been fighting with thorns and thistles throughout his entire life. So Noah begot 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The earth was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. It's interesting. We think about evil continually. Do you think about violence? Earth was filled with violence. This idea that hundreds of years ago everything was kumbaya, we all hold hands, we all trade nice and peaceful, not true. Men without God will lead to violence. So God looked upon the earth, and indeed it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. And God said to Noah, I don't know what you have planned for the rest of your life, Noah, but here's what's going to happen for the next 120 years, and it's going to be a black swan event. God said to Noah, the end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. God is seeking to save the world. That's why he's going to destroy all of these evil people. He's seeking to save the world, and he's choosing to do that through Noah. But how do you save the world? You destroy the world. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood. No, his name didn't mean boat builder. Make an ark. I don't even know what that is. He wasn't a sailor. I can't imagine what goes through Noah's mind at this point. Make an ark. Okay. Make yourself an ark and put some rooms in that ark and cover it inside and outside with pitch. Pitch is important. What's pitch do? It seals it. Because what good is a leaky boat? The earth is going to be, all mankind will be destroyed by the water, and you got to keep the water outside of the boat. Pitch is very important, Bonnie. And this is how you shall make it. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, its width 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits. You shall make a window for the ark. And ye shall finish it to a cubit from above, and set the door of the ark in its side. You shall make it with a lower, second, and third deck. And behold, I myself am bringing flood waters on the earth. God is the source of this judgment, and God is the source of this destruction, and God will be the source of this salvation. To destroy from under heaven all flesh in which is the breath of life, everything that is on the earth shall die. But I will establish my covenant with you, Noah. And you shall go into the ark, you, your sons, your wife, your sons' wives with you. And of every living thing of all flesh you shall bring 2 of every sort into the ark, to keep them alive with you. They shall be male and female. The birds after their kind, of animals after their kind, and of every creeping thing of the earth after its kind. 2 of every kind will come to you to keep them alive. And you shall take for yourself of all food that is eaten, and you shall gather it to yourself, and it shall be food for you and for them. They were going to be busy, weren't they? They were going to be busy building this ark for 120 years. And then for the time period that they're on that ark, they're going to be busy. Thus Noah did, according to all that God had commanded, so he did. Any of y'all been to this? Sandy, you've been? I think Mom's been. Highly recommended. If you get a chance, this thing is somewhere out in the middle of Kentucky, right? It's a good idea to go visit. But that was an unforeseen event. And one thing I want you to key in on is there was an ark. Let's go to another black swan event. And this one we're going to pick up in Exodus. Now there arose a new king over Egypt who did not know Joseph. So earlier we had God and Noah. They were walking together. They had relationship one with another. They knew each other. Here, Pharaoh does not know Joseph. There's no longer a relationship. That has broken down for whatever reason. The Egyptians now are very leery of the Israelites. So, first, Pharaoh says, we're going to work them to death. Remember? We're going to work them to death. We're going to make them slaves. They're going to just make bricks all day long. Didn't work. They kept on multiplying. They kept on flourishing. Then the king of Egypt spoke to the Hebrew midwives, of whom the name of one was Shiphrah and the name of the other Puah. And he said, when you do the duties of a midwife for the Hebrew women, and you see them on the birth stools, if it is a son, then you shall kill him. But if it is a daughter, then she shall live. What's Pharaoh looking to do?
Population control.
Population control. I'm sorry, I didn't know where it came from. Good, population control. He's really seeking to get rid of that toxic Israelite masculinity, right? And he's looking to do that with late-term abortion, right? The midwives feared God. Look, there are people who will argue that a baby does not have personhood until it has personality. And up until that point, we need to be careful when we're dealing with folks who we see in our lives and they are slowly losing their personality. Sometimes we'll use terms like, they're not even here anymore. It's a dangerous term, I think. because the life is still sacred. Back to Pharaoh and our midwives. They did not do as the king of Egypt commanded them because they feared God. They saved the male children alive. So the king of Egypt called for the midwives, said to them, "Why have you done this thing and saved the male children alive?" And the midwives said to Pharaoh, "These Hebrew women are not like Egyptian women. They are lively and give birth before the midwives can even come to them." Therefore, God dwelt well with the midwives. The people multiplied and they grew very mighty. And so it was because the midwives feared God that he provided households for them. Does that?
Check it.
Bill's on his way to the hospital. Okay, good. Bill fell. If anyone was late coming, Bill fell last night and injured himself and wasn't able to get out of his chair this morning. And so Gary went on up to help him evaluate. And so they're on the way to the hospital to see if anything's broken. Now, the medical community lets Pharaoh down. He can't rely on them to kill these baby boys. So what does Pharaoh do next? He brings guilt upon all his people. It's interesting that he doesn't do this via the military. He just says to all his people, "You know what? When you see a male Hebrew child, if you're an owner of an Israelite slave girl and she is pregnant, you stand by, and when she gives birth and you see that he is a male, you take him by the heel and you walk over to the Nile River and you throw him in." That's how we're going to get this done. And that's what they did. Pharaoh commanded all his people, "Every son who is born you shall cast into the river, every daughter you shall save alive." It's dreadful what a tyrant can get his people to accomplish on his behalf. I love how this starts off. And there was a man. And there was a man. He's a Levi, and he took a woman. She was a Levi. And she conceived and bore a son. Boy, she had to keep that secret, didn't she? And when she saw that he was a beautiful child, does anybody here give birth to an ugly child? They're all beautiful, aren't they? Aren't they? When she saw that he was a beautiful child, she hid him for 3 months. And when she could no longer hide him, she took an ark. That's the same word. That word ark is the same word for Moses' little basket, as was for Noah's ark, holding all those animals. But she took an ark of bulrushes for him, and what'd she do, Bonnie?
She put pitch on.
She put pitch all on that sweet little ark. She had to keep the water out. She took an ark of bulrushes, daubed it with asphalt pitch. She put Moses in it. She laid it in the reeds by the river's bank. His sister, Miriam, stood afar off to know what would be done to him. You see little Moses' ark? What's under the water? can tell you, there's a lot of little Israelite baby boys under the water. You ever think about that? The water destroyed the earth and all those people who were continually thinking about violence. Now that was a judgment of God. This is not. This is the judgment of a tyrant who seeks to destroy a people. But it's a judgment nonetheless. And those, what's under the water, are a lot of baby boys. Now, Moses is saved by an ark. An ark with pitch. And it kept him afloat of the same waters that had destroyed so many of his brethren. The daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river, and her maidens walked alongside that river. And when she saw the ark among the reeds, she sent her maid to go get it. And when she opened it, now what should she have done? If she was fulfilling the command of the tyrant, what should she have done? You take that baby out of that ark and you hold that baby under the water. That's not what happened. God had other plans. When she saw that child and she beheld him, the baby wept. And that pulled the compassion right out of Pharaoh's daughter, right up to the surface. So she had compassion on him and said, "This is one of the Hebrew children." And she chose to raise that boy. You remember Miriam's cool little trick, right? Miriam comes running up out of the bushes. "Hey, I know a wet nurse. Her name's Jochebed. She'll work for cheap." This is the word for ark in the Hebrew, tebal. 3 little letters. And really it means a box, right? That's what Noah had to build, a really big box. And that's what Jochebed built, a little tiny box. But it's an ark nonetheless. And this I thought was really cute. I have a friend who loves to dive down into the Hebrew. And every letter of the Hebrew alphabet has a meaning. That doesn't work for us. B doesn't mean anything but B. And Z doesn't have a story behind it. But in the Hebrew, that's not true. Every letter has it's like hieroglyphics, right? And it's a little picture. So when you take these, of course they're spelled backwards, when you take these Hebrew letters, this is what, how would I say tav? Tav? It means crossed sticks. And that's kind of what it looks like. It could mean a sign, a signal, a monument. We go to our next little letter, bet. That's supposed to be a house. Okay? Or where your family would reside inside. And then here's our last little letter. That's a man holding his hands up in worship to God. Or it could mean the breath. Well, that's what I came up with. This is an ark. Why is it an ark? Because it's 2 crossed sticks. It's where we reside together as a family inside. Noah's family wouldn't have done real well if they were outside the ark, Dorothy. They wouldn't have done real well. They needed to be inside. And what do we do inside that ark? We worship. We worship. Why do we need an ark? Because it's a corrupt generation. It will always be a crooked and corrupt generation. This will come to each and every one of you. Somewhere in your life, there will be a pre and post moment. Guarantee you. It may come because of the judgment of God, and you deserve it. I can attest to that. Sin will bring you a black swan event. It may come because man. It may come because of the tyrant. You need an ark. And you need to be inside it. And it needs to be pitched. First Peter 3, and then we're done. What does Peter say? Christ suffered once for sins, the just like Noah, the just for the unjust. That's me. That he might bring us to God. That's a mode of transportation. How's he going to bring us to God? By being put to death in the flesh, but made alive by the Spirit. By whom also, by that Spirit, Christ went and preached to the spirits in prison, those who were bound and already dead, whom formerly were disobedient, when once the divine was long-suffering, waited in the days of Noah. 120 years he waited, while the ark was being prepared, in which a few, that is, 8 souls, were saved. How? Through water. The water that killed was the water that brought salvation to Noah. The water that killed those Israelite babies is the water that brought salvation to Moses. So what does Peter say? Why, this is a foreshadowing. There is also an antitype. There is a corresponding example for you and I. There is an antitype which now saves us. What is it? Baptism. Baptism. The same water. What am I supposed to put down and not let come back up? That old sinful man. And what do I come through that with? Needs to be an ark. Baptism, not the removal of the filth of the flesh. Nothing in the water. Nothing in the water. Not your weekly bath. But an answer of a good conscience toward God through the resurrection of Jesus Christ. It doesn't mean anything if he wasn't resurrected. Who has gone into heaven and is at the right hand of God. Angels and authorities and powers have been made subject to him. I want you to think 3 arks. Noses. I gotta slow down. Noah built a big ark because God wanted to save the world. And Jochebed built a little ark because God wanted to save a nation. And Peter tells us, by the death and the resurrection of Christ, you have an ark, and that's the waters of baptism to bring you through. We have a song? Sure. Actually, I want to bring back up